Welcome to Venice Views. I'm Pam Johnson, Marketing and Communications Officer for the City of Venice, and today we're here in front of this lovely 1926 building that is part of the history of the City of Venice. It's now called the Horse and Chaise, but it's had a long history, and here to tell you about it is one of the owners, Lois Deckety. Welcome, Lois.
Thank you very much.
Well, tell us when the house was built and who built it and why and all of that.
Just give you some background on it. Well, first off, I want to let you know I appreciate your inviting me to be a part of this, and I welcome all of your viewers who are looking today and finding out a little bit about Venice, because certainly we are a part of your history. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to have you take a look at our building, because when our building was built back in 1926, it was actually built for a specific person. It was not built as a spec house. Most of the smaller homes in Venice that were built between 26 and 27 were built as spec houses, but ours was built for a particular individual. This was built as a two-story house, and it was built at a cost of $9,200, which today translates into much more. Now, the interesting thing also about our building is that when the gentleman arranged to have it built, and he had it built by H. Mays, and Mr. Mays was a contractor for one of the subsidiaries of the BLE, and when they built our house, the gentleman purchased 3 lots. So this is another thing that was very unusual in the fact that the original property went from just the far side of the building, and it went all the way down to the alleyway, which is right west of here. It was 3 lots. And I'll take you out back in a little bit and show you what they did with that, because we are standing actually in what was the original driveway. It went right up beside the house, and it went to a garage in the back. And we'll take and show you that, because that's also indicative of the fact that this was built for a more upper middle class person. Okay? Now, the building, as I said, was built in 26. The addition was put on in the early 50s because originally the house was built for a private family. But during the Depression, it was vacant a lot, and then eventually the Leftons purchased the house and lived in it for almost 10 years. That was the longest length of time it was a private home. And then in the early 50s, Thomas and Melinda Allen purchased it, and they turned the building into a nursing home. It was actually the first nursing home of the area. And it came in just before the Nursing Pavilion South came in, down on Field Avenue. So this was one of the first public facilities. And they originally used just the house part, and then they put on one addition, and then there was such a demand, they put on the second addition. So it's been in this configuration since the mid-50s.
Well, Lois, let's go inside and take a look.
Okay, let's go take a look. I'm going to invite you to come this way. Okay, another one of the features of this house that indicates it was for an upper middle class is the very ornate opening, stucco facade around the door. And that's the original light that was up there. And also, the other thing that's kind of interesting about this house is that these windows all used to be casement windows, and that means that they opened out rather than, sash windows going up and down. And the reason for that being that they could then get full air, because they didn't have the luxury of air conditioning.
Right. And I imagine the walls are pretty thick, too.
The walls are very thick. This is actually a frame house, and with stucco and plaster.
Interesting.
In fact, our walls are very thick, and it makes it a very secure house. Now, the other interesting thing about our house is that the construction of it is all done with 2x6 lumber. For those of you who are know your lumber. It is called first growth pine. Very, very hard. And they used it in a lot of the early houses because it was very, very, very hard, and the termites couldn't impregnate it. So that's why they used the first growth pine. So anyway, it makes it today, if you go in our attic, absolutely beautiful. The wood is still gorgeous. It really is. So anyway, okay, now that we have taken you and you have seen the windows, let me come with me. And I'll take you on a tour inside and show you a little bit of our facility. Okay. All right. One of the features that I would also like to show you is the fireplace. The fireplace is very indicative of early Mediterranean Italian, whatever you want to call it. And this was the only form of heat that they had. Now, when you look at the fireplace now, you can see a brick look, but I did that. Because most of all of the original fireplaces were all smooth construction. And it looked like big blocks.
Similar to the chimney.
And this is a poured fireplace. This is a poured mantle. So I added the brick look just to give it a little bit different facade, a little bit more modern look. But this also you will find in all of the houses built back then. Now, another thing I would like to show you is, as we walk around, one of the things that is indicative that this house was built as for, again, upper middle class, is the stairwell. The stairwell, if you look at it, compared to most stairwells you'll see in Venice, is quite wide.
Yes.
Most of the time, it is very narrow and probably almost half of what we have
A lot
here.
of times the steps are much more shallow as well.
Right. The tread is much shallower.
So you'll want to come over and see this.
Right, and the other thing is that in our stairwell we have what they call the effect of a tower, and you can see if you look up here, it has that rounded look, and those are the original glass in there, and so they have lasted all this time. Now the stained glass pieces are modern. They were not there, but those are the original windows. Now the other interesting thing about the house is that when you go upstairs, it also has a little bit of a lobby, which is unusual again because up at that point it was wasted space. It wasn't used. And so that's another indication of the fact that it was built for a little bit more upper class person. The master bedroom is on the northwest corner of the house. And the reason for that is that, again, no air conditioning, so it was able to catch all of the west breeze in the afternoon, coming off the Gulf in the afternoon.
Right.
So they worked with the climate as much as they could. Now, when you come in here, this is now one total room, but this is what used to be the dining room. And again, the dining room was put on the east side of the house so that you catch the morning sun. And in the morning, it certainly is bright in here. It's absolutely beautiful because everybody's watching, no, they're not watching the sun come up because I'm not up there. But
the light is
the light is gorgeous. Now, you will see that up here we have a beam because we took out a whole wall here in order to make a dining room that was big enough to accommodate the guests for the B&B. But this right here used to be a maid's bedroom. And it was a little tiny bedroom, and it had just enough room for a single bed, tiny dresser, and a chair. And it also had a small closet, believe it or not, all in this space. And we used that as a room in our business for years and years and years. And it was one of our favorite rooms that was always used. And this over here, that is now a wet bar area, that was the bathroom for the maid and for the downstairs. Now, it was only a half bath because you only had room for toilet and a tiny, one of those tiny little sinks that you see in trailers, you know, and you had to kind of stand up to open and close the door, but it worked. It worked. So anyway, the expectation is that there would be a maid.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. So come this way. This here used to be a mudroom. This was the original kitchen, and this was a porch. And when they converted it into a nursing home back in the early 50s, they had to make it into a whole working facility for everybody. And behind you, Pam, you will see I have shelves, and that's where they used to put everybody's trays, because it used to be able to accommodate, we had at one point 25 guests when it was a nursing home.
Oh my goodness.
And
So everybody had a tray?
Everybody
slot?
had a tray, yeah, and the trays were then brought out to the people, to the residents, and they were served in that way. Now, when it was a nursing home, as I said, it was originally called Allen's Nursing Home, because Thomas and Melinda Allen owned it at that point. My aunt and mother then purchased it from the Allens and named it Elmar Guest Home. Some of you may have remember that name from years ago.
I do remember.
Do you remember?
Yes.
And the interesting thing is they chose Elmar, E-L for Elizabeth, my aunt, and Mar for Margaret. Okay? So they came up with Elmar. And come to find out that Mar in Spanish means sea. And so L kind of means, it's a loose translation of by the sea. So that's why we kept it. But my parents then ran it as a nursing home for 8 years. And then they converted to a senior residence, an old folks home. And ran it that way for 3 years. And then they had enough. They were ready to retire. And my husband and I were working in Bradenton. He was a teacher, I was a nurse, and we were working opposite schedules. I was in the evening, he was in the daytime, and had we tried to keep that up, I'm sure we would not be still married 46 years today. So they offered it to us as a business, and so we took them up on it, and we then ran it as a senior residence for 28 years.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
We were here 28 years. And after 28 years, it was just time for a change.
And what year was that you
Converted we converted to a B&B back at Christmas of the year 2000. Yeah, it was just at the turn we converted to the B&B. So we have been a B&B since
for about 14 years?
for 13, almost 14
Almost
years.
14.
Yeah, almost 14 years. Well, I'd like to invite you to come out back with me and to see the back of our property and to see what they did, because it was very, another distinctive part of the property is that there was a garage, a two-stall garage, and with this garage, there was a bathroom out here. And the bathroom would have been used by the maid and by anybody working in the yard, whatever. So we converted this then into an apartment and into a storage room. But let me come and just give you a quick peek so that you can begin to see what it was all about. Come this way.
So actually, Lois, the two-car garage, that was unusual then as
That
well.
was unusual also. Yes, it was.
That
This was
pretty.
This was one stall, and here was the other stall. Okay.
And
What we did is we cut the one stall in half so that we could use part of it for storage, because as you know, in Florida you need all the storage you can get. It's not easy.
So is this a special room that people rent to?
This is one of our little suites that we do rent. But in here you'll see the original bathroom. And this is the shower. They had just a tiny little shower, but this is where the maid and anybody who worked outside or whatever would come and get cleaned up.
It's very charming, isn't it?
Well, thank you.
Is this the original floor?
No,
Okay.
no, believe it or not, it's not, but it's designed after one of the original floors that was upstairs.
Oh, okay.
So come with me and let me show you around the back a little bit. Because one of the other features of this house is that, as I said originally, it was purchased, designed over 3 lots. Okay? So the first lot went from just the far side of the house to right, believe it or not, right up the middle of the garage. And then this starts lot 2. And it goes, now there are 2 more lots between here and the alleyway. And under the deck was built a tennis court.
Oh my.
So, it was, the whole thing, I mean, it was built as quite a huge piece of property. And the property itself was purchased for $2,900. No, $2,900. $2,900.
All 3 lots.
All 3 lots.
And
wouldn't
this is
you?
a beautiful banyan
Wouldn't you
tree.
love to have done it for $2,900?
It was probably a lot of money back then,
It
though.
was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. Now, the interesting thing is in under this deck is part of the tennis court. And what happened was, when my parents had this as a nursing home, you know, who's going to use the tennis court? So my father made a hole in the middle of this tennis court, a beautiful round hole. I'll show you a picture of it when we go inside. And he planted this little tree, not having any idea what he was planting. But he said, you know, maybe someday somebody will sit under it and enjoy it. Okay. So what happened was, it actually is a Cuban laurel. It's not a banyan tree. It's a Cuban laurel. Yeah. And the difference between a Cuban laurel and the banyan tree and that little ficus tree that you see in the grocery store are all members of the rubber tree family. Okay. The leaf on a Cuban laurel is smaller than the leaf of the banyan tree. A banyan tree leaf is about 4 times, needs about 4 leaves of the Cuban laurel to make up 1 leaf of the banyan tree. So anyway, but what happens is, because they're all members of the rubber tree family, they have surface roots. So the roots started picking up the cement.
Oh, yes.
And then we couldn't get insurance because it was considered a hazardous surface.
Somebody could trip and fall.
Somebody could trip and fall. Forget the fact that they're all inside and can't walk out here. Somebody could trip and fall. Okay, so about 30 some odd years ago, we then, because we couldn't get insurance, wanted to have the tennis court removed. They wanted $5,000. Well, you know, Sugarfoot at that point, you may as well have said $5 million. Who had $5,000 back then? So we naturally didn't have it hauled away.
Right, so it's still there.
And it's underneath this deck part is the tennis court, and you can see actually pieces of it underneath the edging of the deck. And then Roger, our bug man, our pest man, came and said, well, you know what? If you can't take it out, cover it up. So that's how the deck was born, because we simply had to cover up the darn tennis court.
But it must be 20 degrees cooler under this tree. It's
it is
really
wonderful.
Lovely.
Yes, it is always wonderful under this tree. And believe it or not, the split leaf philodendron that you see here started out from one tiny plant I had on the corner of a deck on the far side, and it just went bananas. It just loves this area. It really does. And we have thoroughly enjoyed the deck. We used to have many picnics out here. We've had 90 people out here for picnics. We've had weddings. We've had, you know, the whole gamut. So it has certainly served a purpose.
Yes,
it's been good. We have armadillos. We have rabbits. We have the herons. We've got everything you can imagine has lived here. We had parrots here at one point.
Oh, yes.
The tennis court runs anywhere from 7 to 12 inches thick.
Oh, my.
And it was you know, the old coquina and the cement and the whole 9 yards. This tennis court was not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
you could drive on it. So
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
wonder why they made it so thick.
Well, when we took up the driveway, there was naturally a driveway between the building and into the garage that we took up eventually for aesthetic purposes. And it was also, I mean, the whole island had to have just risen about 4 inches when we took off all the cement. It was just
goodness.
incredible. But I think it's just because they did it at that
They
point.
built things really
They built
sturdy.
things, yeah.
They did. To last.
They did. They built it to last. And this was an original live oak. The live oak has been here years and years.
That's a beautiful tree.
It's a
too.
beautiful tree also. But the lot goes up to the far side of the ficus tree, and there is a little alley that goes right up there. And again, that was all part of the Nolan plan, so that it would be easy access from the one side of the street from Ponce de Leon to Pensacola, because we do have the city park there.
Right.
So, because for just reference purposes, the Arboretum is just right on the other side of of the block. You know, that's where we are. Of Blaylock Park. Yeah. So anyway, but okay, so this just gives you an idea. Oh, and then the interesting thing is, here you had this beautiful house that was built, all of this stuff, beautiful tennis court, and then I have a photo that right in the front of all this, right on the up against the sidewalk, was a great big garden with a scarecrow in it.
Wonderful. That was probably like a victory garden.
It could, you know what? I never even thought of that. So let's go inside, and then we'll. You can see from here a really good picture of the wing, and the wing was actually built in 2 stages. There was a first stage up to about where the palm tree is in the middle, and then the second stage. And as I said, the reason being that Venice was really a thriving community, after the war,
Right.
because so many of the guys, the service people, came back. They remembered Venice, and they came back, and there was really a need for, believe it or not, a nursing home.
Well, sure. And people retire someplace.
People
then
retire, and then the
eventually
grandparents come. Parents come. So yeah, so it was a very busy. It was a very thriving business for a number of years. It really was. Okay, well, come this way and let me show. Let's take a walk down the hall, and because when you walk down the hall, it gives you a whole idea of how big it is. Because from the outside, it's hard to imagine. There we go.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but we're going to come back here next time and talk to Lois some more about her lovely 1926 home and the bed and breakfast that it has become and all her wonderful stories. So we hope you'll join us next time when we bring you more Venice Views.